In this video, we'll cover what it is to play the Machinist, the Scouter, the Iron Man of Lost Ark, and why you'd want to play this over any of the other classes. Machinist is an advanced class that falls under the Gunner. It is a super squishy class with low defenses, but it makes up for that by having high mobility, a loyal drone companion, and a unique class identity. As a Machinist, you have the ability to micromanage your untargetable drone in a completely separate manner. This is especially handy because you'll be able to stay away and deal damage from a far distance while also being able to jump right in on the action. If you're looking for a class whose best friend is a high-tech drone, it helps you transform into Iron Man to laser down your opponents, then Machinist is definitely for you. When it comes to your advanced gunner classes, the Machinist is also a really squishy target. Like most of them, positioning is key as you have to stay up close, although any source of incoming damage will punish you immediately. Now the Artillerist is much more durable. It's a slower gunner for sure, whereas the Machinist plays at a much faster and kind of a flashier pace. What both gunners have in common though is the ability to transform into a different mode that changes the playstyle significantly. What makes the Machinist really stand out the most versus the other gunners is the drone management. Unlike all of the other classes, this is a way to land skills on enemies from places that other advanced classes can't, while also being untargetable on top of that. Now the only thing that's more fun than controlling the highest tech machine guns, laser weapons, and drones is by suiting up into a high-tech exoskeleton yourself. That is what the Machinist class identity is all about. Once you fully charge up that meter with your drone and fusion skills, you'll transform and go into hypersync mode. This mode will grant you tons of extra movement speed, increase attack power, a pretty big shield, as well as activate a different set of skills. Movement speed in human form is also great because every time you use certain normal skills, you gain a reload stack that increases your movement speed and attack speed by 1%. This is going to be stacked up to 5 times and persists if you transform. But just because you're faster, stronger, and you have a big shield doesn't mean you should be careless. If your shield breaks, you will change back to human form. With the Legacy class engraving too, you won't get your identity gauge back if that happens, so you will miss out on a lot of potential damage. Now moving on to PvE, depending on your class engraving, you'll find yourself either in human or hypersync form most of the time. Now if you're in human form, you'll be focusing on drone skills, normal skills, and fusion skills to deal damage. In hypersync, you'll be using the drone and fusion skills to transform. You really do need to pay attention to your positioning and timing to maximize your damage output, as Machinists need to stay close range most of the time. In PvP, a good Machinist will control his drones to zone, peel, and catch enemies. Being able to stay safe at distance while having an untargetable drone dealing damage for you will drive your enemy team absolutely crazy. On top of that, they also have good burst damage that they can cast from a safe distance, and once you see the right opportunity to engage, you can activate hypersync and jump straight into action, as it will grant you stagger immunity too. Similar to PvE though, you need to be very careful as you're super squishy. If you aren't careful about your surroundings, you'll most likely get caught and take some really serious damage. Let's go through a couple of your core abilities, starting with your core blue abilities, which are your drone exclusive skills. First off, we have Baby Drones. This skill sends small self-destructing drones to a target location that'll deal a good amount of damage on impact. Raid Missile is your second core drone skill that has decent stagger built into it and fires missiles at a target location, knocking down everybody in their way. Energy Burster is your core purple and fusion skill, meaning it uses both your drone and your Machinist to work. It'll make your Machinist use a drone attached to his arm to release a huge chunk of energy that deals insane damage, regenerates lots of identity meter, and is by far your best source of stagger. Mobile Shot is your core yellow skill, which is basically a character only skill, and your mobility tool too. It's a quick roll which can be extended to a second roll to escape those massive heated scenarios with the additional maneuver tripod taken here. Echelon Beam is one of the skills you can use in hypersync mode, which makes you jump up higher and shoot a laser in front of you. It not only does great amounts of damage, but it also acts as a mid-range counter. As with all classes, the Machinist has access to 2 awakening abilities. Airstrike makes you send a signal to a selected area, which will then make bombs rain with insane damage and stagger. The more bombs hit your target, the more identity meter is generated, so this is a really great skill to enter hypersync as fast as possible. Final Explosion simply orders your drone to self-destruct. You can control your drone to an area of your choice and then make it explode. It has a really fast animation and does a ton of damage. Now let's talk engravings quickly. So every Lost Ark class has access to 2 class engravings that will focus your playstyle in one particular direction. For Machinists, you would choose between Legacy of Evolution and Argentine Technology. We'll start with Legacy Evolution. So if you like shooting lasers while being super mobile and flashy, this engraving is definitely the one to pick. It increases your hypersync mode skills damage and reduces all of their cooldowns, and on top of that, it also gives you 40% identity meter back when hypersync runs out. When you transform, you'll get a great shield that makes your Machinist tankier than the Argentine technology build, but the downside here is that if you compare the damage, it is going to be lower. If you choose this engraving though, you mainly want to focus on the specialization stat first, as it will boost your damage in hypersync mode as well as help you generate your identity meter faster. After that, you want to go for crit as secondary stat for that extra damage, but really one of the biggest main reasons to choose a legacy class engraving is because it's extremely cheap to build. It requires only 2 gems and 2 tripods for max effectiveness. If you're using your submachine gun though, and your drone is more fun for you, then the Argentine technology engraving is for you. This engraving increases the damage of your drone operator and companion skills as well as battery. You'll also gain more movement speed when the drone is following you, so it's much more fast paced and pairing with the raid captain engraving perfectly. The drawback for seeing higher numbers on your enemies though is that this engraving choice will be ultimately squishier than the Legacy of Evolution one. Lastly, the stat priority is more around prioritizing crit first to ensure you're reaching your highest damage ceiling, and then swiftness secondary for that extra cooldown reduction. That should catch you up with everything that you need to know for a basic level of the Machinist class. Remember to check out our full guides including the build guides and boss guides over on our website.